Hi class, do now? Good, Shane. Thank you for getting your notebook, Tia. Appreciate that. All right. So when I say go, you're gonna write a list of why the colonists were British. Try for 5 reasons. Go. That's great time. Go. Great time. All right. 10 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Pencils down. Great. So what were some of the reasons that you found? Shane, what's something you came up with?
I came up with the Boston Massacre.
Awesome. Boston Massacre. Tia?
Taxes.
Taxes. Great reasons. I love it. Now, I got a short clip for us to watch. So let's do that real quick. And it's going to help us review those reasons that we've been studying.
I'm on my way to see my wife and kid.
By the way, I'm Zorn, defender of Siberia, decapitator of the...
Yeah, this is it.
Since the Europeans had discovered the Americas in the 1490s, they had been exploring, conquering, and colonizing the newfound continent for the next few centuries. By the 18th century, North America had been colonized by Britain, France, and Spain. In 1754, a war began between France and Britain over disputed territories in North America. It spilled over into a colonial war across the world and ultimately led to the British forces defeating the French, who'd been helped by several Native American tribes. Great Britain had won the war but was left heavily in debt. At this time, many generations had been living in America. This was their home. Britain decided to tax the American colonists for the first time, but they refused to pay tax.
Nice, Tia. Okay, so this is getting into the relationship between Britain and the colonists.
As they didn't have representation in the British Parliament by their rights as Englishmen. Colonists refused representation too in Britain, as being on the opposite side of the Atlantic made it a little impractical. American colonists began to boycott British goods and angry mobs against the British grew. The British Parliament repealed the Stamp Act, but maintained it should govern over its colonies in America. The British decided to increase taxes to be paid on customs duty for imported British goods such as tea, paper, paint, lead and glass, which they
Okay, Townsend Acts. There's another tab.
Americans were reliant on. This angered more and more colonists. 4,000 British troops were sent to Massachusetts to try and threaten the people of Boston. They simply organised more boycotts, but it was difficult because the highly taxed goods were so widely used. Tensions ran high in March 1770 as 5 colonists were killed by British soldiers during a heated incident. Word of the Boston Massacre was spread around the 13 British colonies and outrage ensued. In 1773, Britain tried to import and sell untaxed tea to the East India Company. Because Britain was trying to monopolise the tea, the Americans held the ships in Boston and didn't allow them to unload. On December 6th, a group known as the Sons of Liberty, disguised as Native Americans, boarded the ships and dumped the tea into the sea in what became known as the Boston Tea Party. In 1774, Britain punished Massachusetts with a series of acts to control the colony and
Like that. Okay. So good. Also the Boston Tea Party. And then we have a bunch of other laws that were passed. So not just taxes and conflicts, but also laws to suppress the colonists, making them
acts to control the colony and place its own royal governor to take charge, but the people set up their own provincial congress. Britain was in control of Boston, but the Americans had control of the countryside, as they began organising and training militias. American patriot leaders from 12 of the 13 colonies came together and convened the First Continental Congress in Philadelphia. They petitioned the king, wanting rid of the taxes and the royal governors, claiming the British Parliament had no place in internal American affairs, but they were happy to agree to the trade regulations. The British response, however, was more and more regulations, restrictions, and an increased army presence. In February 1775, Massachusetts was declared to be in a state of rebellion by the British Parliament. By April, the British commander, Lieutenant General Thomas Gage, was ordered to disarm the rebels and arrest their leaders. Paul Revere and
Okay, this is where we are today. We're gonna start talking about Lexington and Concord, 2 towns that are outside of Boston. So listen close right here.
The riders rode through the night ahead of the British forces to warn the leaders in Lexington and Concord. By the time the British reached Lexington, militia were waiting for them.
Okay, so by the time they got to Lexington, the English were waiting for the British soldiers. Okay, very good. Now, back to the show, slideshow that is. Okay, so, good Tia, Shane, love your answers. So Boston Massacre, we have Boston Tea Party, some other ones, they were taxed and suppressed with different laws, and then another reason that the colonists were angry at the British is because there was no representation. So the British were passing all these laws, but they weren't letting the colonists say, hey, well, did we get a say in this? They did not, and so they're mad at that. And that's how the conflicts grew. So, today, we're going to focus in on that next step. Okay, the start of the Revolutionary War, Lexington and Concord, the Battle of Lexington and Concord. But the outcome for today, as you've seen earlier, and we'll refer back to this often, learners can make two inferences from a primary source. And the primary sources that we're going to look at are two primary sources from the different perspectives of soldiers in the battles of Lexington and Concord. So we understand what happened on that ground level. Now, before we can do that, we got to understand what an inference is. Shane, what to you is an inference?
Inference is making an educated guess of what's going to happen next.
Very good. Thank you. I love that. Educated guess. Tia, could we have you read this, please?
Yeah. The term inference refers to the process of using observation and background knowledge to draw a conclusion that makes sense.
Very good. Okay, so Shane, what you had said was an educated guess. It's just the same with just about the same thing. A conclusion that makes sense. Okay, it's not just this wild idea that comes out of nowhere, but it makes sense. It's educated. There's reasons for it. Now, Shane, what is the second bolded word in here? Observation. Okay, so there's two key things. And Tia, what's the third bolded?
Background knowledge.
Good. So observation and background knowledge. Okay, so observing. This is important. Is to observe. That is something that you see. And then the background knowledge is things that you know. So you're putting those two things together to create a conclusion or an educated guess. To tell you something, what's going on. So, here's our first example. Shane, can you read the first bullet point?
Julia arrives at home at 4:30 and knows that her mother does not get off of work until 5. Julia also sees that the lights are off in her house.
Very good. Okay, so the inference, Tia, could you read that second bullet point?
Julia can infer that her mother is not yet home.
Yeah. Okay, so Tia, what tells you that her mother's not yet home?
The lights are off in the house.
The lights are off in the house. What else, Shane, tells you that her mom's not home?
Because of the time.
Okay. What about this?
She got home early. And it's not 5 o'clock yet, so she knows her mother's not home.
Okay, good. So using those two combined sentences, you can make an educated guess. You can draw a conclusion. Oh, her mom's not home. Now, what about this? What if, instead of saying off, on. What could you infer then?
Her mom maybe finished work early.
Good. What's another inference, Shane, that you can come up with?
Maybe Julia left the lights on when she left the house in the morning.
Very good. See? Yeah, or dad's home. Okay. So that's what inferences do. They help you, because it's not specifically said what happens next, but based on the information and based from your knowledge, it's what the text doesn't tell you is an inference. Okay? So there's things that the text tells you specifically, And then there's things that text doesn't tell you. And that's what an inference is. It's the things that aren't said or painted out specifically. Very good. Let's keep going. Okay, so Bob knows that Baltimore is known for its crab cakes. And Bob is going to a seafood restaurant in Baltimore for dinner tonight. So Shane, what could be an inference in this situation?
Bob is going to town to get seafood. I don't know.
Alright. So Tia, what can you help Shane out?
He's probably gonna try the crab cakes.
That he's probably gonna get
Yeah.
the crab cakes. What makes you say that?
That said, that place, that restaurant's known for its crab cakes. So he's going to the restaurant in Baltimore, so he'll probably try it.
So there's two key pieces of information. Good, yeah, I love it. That's a great. So Shane, coming back to you, there's key pieces of information. Baltimore is known for its crab cakes, and Bob is going to a seafood restaurant in Baltimore. So, using those two pieces of information, Tia came up with the inference that he's probably going to eat some crab cakes. Okay. And so, that's telling you something that the text doesn't say. This is the information that the text does say, but an inference is what it doesn't say. So let's look. Okay, Bob can infer that the restaurant will likely serve crab cakes. That's different from what you had, Tia. You see that? You said he's probably going to order crab cakes.
I would order something if it's well known.
Yeah.
Usually I get one.
Exactly.
that's well known.
See, and now you are adding in your background knowledge. That's
Yeah.
awesome. I really like that, Tia. Good job. So Shane, do you see how you use the two pieces of information to bring an inference together? Something that the text doesn't tell you?
Yes.
Great. It's kind of a loaded question. You have to say yes. Okay. Let's go with this next one. Sherry's toddler is in, or Shane, could you just read this for us?
Sherry's toddler is in bed upstairs. She hears a bang and crying.
So Sherry can infer that her toddler fell out of bed. Very good. Is there anything else that we can infer from this, Tia?
She probably did hit herself, injured herself some other way.
Yeah.
Besides falling off the roof.
Yeah. What can make a large bang?
Toys or something, or hitting like a cradle, is that?
Yeah.
Me hitting that, or
Good.
trying to get up.
There you go. Good. Alright, so let's take a look at our picture. Okay, so, like we discussed, an inference is drawing a conclusion based on what we observe and our background knowledge. Okay, so let's just take a second to look at this. What do you see? Literally, like what do you see in this picture? Tia?
Donald Trump.
Donald Trump. Okay, Shane, what do you see? Let's more details.
His hand is making a gesture.
Gesture. Okay, good. What other details? That's very literal. I like this. Tia, keep going. Another detail that you can see.
His facial expression.
He's making a face.
Yeah, I don't know, his emotion. I don't know if that's.
Good. Okay. Let's look at this bottom right corner. What do you see about this? Shane?
Wearing a black suit.
He's wearing a black suit. Alright, anything else in there?
The flag.
You see a flag pin? What about this? What's this? What do you think this is?
I don't know what that was.
A giant tie.
A giant tie?
Is it time your head? Is it?
Oh yeah, it is.
Oh, it's like
Microphone.
I was like,
So it's a microphone. So we have a flag pin, black suit, microphone, a hand gesture, a facial expression. So what is his face saying to you, Shane?
His face is saying that I am going. You want me to say what he's going to say?
Not what he's gonna say. What emotion is on his face?
He's a little bit concerned.
Concern? Good. Tia, what do you think?
But he's serious. He's like trying to make a point.
Ooh. What makes you say that he's trying to make a point?
His hand gesture. I do that when I try to make a point. I'm like, hey guys, like, let's like this is serious. It's like, okay. I don't know.
Yeah, using those details. Good. Alright. So those are inferences. See, Jane, you made the comment that he looks confused or concerned. Okay? So that's an inference. Now using that inference, you can add on a little bit using a detail from the picture. Donald Trump looks confused, or I infer that Donald Trump looks confused because his facial expression shows a concerned look. Excuse me. Okay, or Tia, I infer that he is trying to make a point because he is using a specific hand gesture. Okay, I'll make one. I infer that Donald Trump is making a speech because there's a microphone. Okay. And so it's something, do you know that he's making a speech right here?
Yeah.
Do you know for a fact? Can you see the people he's talking to?
No, very bad.
Alright. So, using the information here, you can draw conclusions. Oh, he's doing this. He's concerned. He's trying to make a point. Those are all inferences that we make. And you know what? This is a tool that we use daily in our lives. We're constantly reading people and looking for what do they mean. What is my girlfriend trying to say when she does this? Or what does Mrs. Tavares, what is she trying to say when we come to school late? Like, what's that facial expression mean? And so we're constantly looking to make a meaning from something that we see. And that's what inferences are doing. They're taking an observation and background knowledge and putting it together to make a conclusion. Very good. So a couple more examples. So John, or Shane, or Tia, can you read this?
John hears a smoke alarm and smells burnt bacon.
Very good. Okay, so talk with your partner. What's a inference that you could make from this?
What is it? I forgot to watch it. Yeah.
What's it? What's
The bacon's burning.
who's
There's smoke
who?
close up. John.
You think it's John's?
No,
If he
well,
smells
he
it?
hears it. So someone's in the kitchen cooking bacon, and they're probably not watching it because it's all burnt and there's smoke in the kitchen.
That's good. Okay, now Tia, can you rephrase that using this structure?
Oh. Okay. I infer that there's someone in the kitchen cooking bacon because there's a smoke alarm going on and there's the smell of burnt bacon.
Good. Okay, alright class, we have a great example over in this group. Tia, can you go ahead and share the whole class?
I infer that there's someone cooking bacon in the kitchen because there's a smoke alarm going on and there's smells like burnt bacon.
Good. And Tia, you know what? There's a couple of inferences that you made there. You said someone's in the kitchen. It doesn't say kitchen there, but you assume kitchen
Yeah.
because kitchen is where you cook. Good. Okay. And someone's cooking bacon, and that they're not watching it, right?
Yeah.
Why do you say that?
Because if they were watching, then it wouldn't be burnt.
Exactly. Good. Okay. Okay, so I see that you two are doing pretty well with this, so let's continue on to the end of the lesson.
Oh,
Alright, well, we gotta keep going. Okay, so this document I have on this paper. Great stuff. So many minutes. Pass out paper. Okay, so here's what you have up on the screen. Eyes up on the screen real quick. Right here is the primary source paragraph. Now, what I did on your papers is I broke down this primary source by sentence. And so what we're going to do is just practice this skill of an inference, okay, on each sentence. So we just go inferring and inferring, practicing, okay? But first we got to source it. So sourcing a document, we got to figure out who wrote it. There's some questions we're going to look at. Ooh, whoops. Yeah, we're going to look at who wrote it, why did they write it, are they a good source for this information, who are they writing to, and when it was written. And as you can see at the bottom, there's a source, and it's at actually the top of your paper. So Shane, when was it written?
April 19, 1775.
Very good. Now, Tia, who wrote it?
Lieutenant John Parker.
Alright, and who's he?
An officer in the British Army.
Awesome. Okay, so April 19th is actually the day of the Battle of Lexington and Concord. So do you think he would have pretty good knowledge of this battle? What do you think, Shane?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, so let's break this.
I just made a difference. Do you think, because April 19th, the day that Timothy McVeigh blew up the Oklahoma City Federal Building?
Yeah.
Remember that? In the 90s? I wonder if he did that. If he knew that April 19th was the start of this guy.
Dr. Shoot, that's a great question. Okay, so here's the teaching moment. Check this out, class. Dr. Shoot just made a connection, and he is asking the question, I wonder if Tim Bomber blew up the building on April 19th because of the Battle of Lexington and Concord on April 19th. That's a good question.
I'm inferring this because he said he was doing it as a attack against the government, which is what we did in Lexington when we attacked the British. We were actually when we fought the British, we were actually fighting our own government at that time.
Absolutely. Thank you. See, that's great. So he asked a question, answered it with an inference. Very good. Thank you, Dr. Shute. So, 2 minutes. What we're going to do, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to let you into my brain. I'm going to think aloud while I read this. So, yeah. All right. The 19th, April 19th. I think this is the date. Nice, April 19th at 2 o'clock. Is that AM or PM? So, what I'm doing is I'm letting you into my head what I do while I think, and some of the things that will help me lead me to an inference. Okay? At 2 o'clock, we began our march. Okay, march. So marching, I think that, well, it has to be the British Army because they're marching, and it was a British officer who did this. Okay, so British Army's marching. They're wading through a very long ford. Walking through water. A long ford. I looked that up. It's actually a stream. Up to our middles. Our middles, what's that? But they're walking somewhere. Okay, well, good. I wonder, what can I infer from this sentence? 19th at 2 o'clock AM. Oh, is it AM or PM? We began our march by wading through a very long ford up to our middles. Okay, so So what can this tell me? I think that they're going to war. I assume this army is going somewhere to fight, so they're fighting war.
And the inference that I'm making from that is that if you've ever tried to walk somewhere and you're all wet,
Yeah.
it's not very comfortable. And so if they're just beginning their march by walking through this water up to their middles, they're in for an uncomfortable rest of the journey, you know?
Yeah. Great. Thank you, Dr. Shu. So, infants that I feel, because I think they're marching toward. So I can infer that. Let's see, the British is marching to war because an army is marching. Okay. So the inference that I said right here is I infer that the British are marching to war. It doesn't say that in that first sentence, but it's something that I'm trying to understand, and so it's a conclusion that I have come to based on reading that first sentence, and so it helps me understand a little bit better. Now, is this true? We don't quite know, but as we continue to read, we'll be able to figure it out. Okay. Very good. So, is there going to there's going to be a war between because the British Army is marching? Alright. Very good. So, how much time have I got? That's about it.
Yeah. Was this the lesson you taught at your class?
Yes.
Nice.
Should I?
You can. That's good.
Okay. So let's